I fell on the carrot, doctor. That's why it's up there, type thing, isn't it?
And the jam jar.
And the jam jar and the action man. Yeah, you got to like wine and dine it before you go for the hard stuff.
Talk a little bit sensually to it.
I'm kind of more of a voyeur on Snapchat at the moment. Just like,
or wait, like in the bushes outside our house or something. Yo, what's going on, guys? We see you from More Than Lifting with my good friend Chris Thatcher.
What's up?
Fuck that up completely, let me try that again. We're talking about bodyweight training, calisthenics, gymnastics, a little bit of weight stuff because Chris enjoys playing games with himself. And and that's about it really. We've covered all of the boring stuff now. We've gone through all of like the fundamentals, all of the the main kind of pillars of your training. So we've covered the skills, we've covered the movements, we've covered the preparation and mobility work, we've covered nutrition, a bit of mindset stuff. We've basically done it all. So we're going to be wrapping up the podcast this week, and that'll be it. Nice 6-7 episode streak. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, shortest podcast ever.
Yeah, at least a series. But I'm only kidding. This is where it gets interesting. We're going to start talking now about our training, what we're doing, our results, what we're testing, and how we approach our stuff to give you an insight in how you can start developing these skills, start getting into these various different types of training, and get a bit of insight in it, something you can apply to yourself. So that's about it. Let's get into it really straight away. Well, actually, no, mate. Let's have a quick chat first. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm all good. Everything okay your end?
Yeah. Just been getting on me gymnastico. And that's about it. I missed a session last week because they were changing the floor. So now we've got a nice soft red floor in there, and it's massive because it's for like team gym, so it's like 16 feet square, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's huge. Like before it was 12, so it's a bit of an increase. So it's pretty, but yeah. That's it though. That's cool. The only real development with me. And it's not even me. It's someone else. But it's it's good fun. It's nice there as well. It's nice and springy and fresh, and yeah. So that's the
just how we like it. Oh, fair enough. Okay, exciting news.
Yeah.
My news actually, it probably kind of feeds into what we're talking about in terms of our own training. I mean, the last couple of weeks, I've not really been very on it training wise, and I think that's probably an interesting place to start when we're talking about our own journeys, because I wouldn't want people out there to think that we're, sort of perfect in every sense, that we never miss training sessions, or we, never eat bad food, or we never have a beer every now and then, or do anything that, you would otherwise consider less than perfect. So my sort of journey the last couple of weeks is just life has came on top just a little bit with work and personal stuff. So training wasn't really a priority. Now I always try and make movement a priority. So going back to our conversations about movement fundamentals, every day involves some sort of movement, some sort of stretching, even if it's just going for a long walk, something to get the blood flowing, get things, up and running in the mornings in particular. But, in terms of actual intense training, there's not been as much of it the last sort of maybe 2 or 3 weeks, just for various different reasons. But as of today, actually, as of recording this today, on Monday, it's all back on.
You're just saying it so that they think you're training still.
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of a session right now. No, it's good. I was back in the gym. I had a couple of gym sessions the last couple of weeks. I had a couple of lifting sessions, but today was kind of the start of a new program, a new cycle, and it felt good. Good to be back with the bars and challenging myself, and a little bit of a challenge because certain things weren't quite firing as quickly as they should, and respiratory and heart and everything was sort of taking its little bit of time to get going. So I was blowing pretty heavy early doors in the session, and then by the end I was pretty flat out, but it was good. I was very happy to get through it. Treat myself to a cheeky little steam and a sauna afterwards, which was a lot of fun. So back on my regimen.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's cool. I had this issue a couple of months ago, where I was injured and then I was ill, and I didn't end up training for 2 months or something like that. Just 2 months off completely, and getting back into it was really difficult. So I'm actually coming out, transitioning out of relatively what was supposed to be a strength cycle, but it hasn't been that heavy. It's slowly built up over the last kind of 4 or 5 weeks, where I've started going training a little bit, and then I've been back at gymnastics solid, and then I've been introducing more and more training progressively over the last couple of weeks to build myself up to training every day again for like a whole cycle. So that's what mine's looked like, and it's mostly been just the basics, the foundational, fundamental stuff like we talked about in episode 2 or 3. The movement the low-level drills, movement fundamentals. So it's basically been like the simple stuff. And now I'm moving into, I've got my skills that I want for my gymnastics next year for the vets competition, because I'm 25, 26, fucking hell, I forgot how old I was. Because I'm 26, I am technically a veteran gymnast. I started as a veteran when I was 24, so it's like over 18s basically. So so I've got my skills that I want for next year's competition, and that's like the basic kind of full, direction that my training's heading, like my macro cycle, you know, the overarching plan. So I've been transitioning out of like getting back into training into moving into more dedicated like skills training and progression training for these 2 skills, which are, drum roll, blah, 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 blah. It's a surprise. I'm not actually going to tell it. No, it's the crucifix. I want the cross, and I want a ring planche as well, a full planche on the rings. So they're both ring skills. And there is other stuff I want to learn, but they're my 2 like big training goals, because they're going to take a lot of strength training. They're going to take a lot of skill, like specific work as well, and it's obviously putting a lot of stress on your joints. So I need to slowly build up. I need to start now so that I can build up, because it takes ages to strengthen up your cartilage and your ligaments and your tendon tissue. That it's a much different process to muscle building. It takes a lot longer, like 3 times as long, in there, something like that, something stupid. So I need to start now, basically, and that's what I've been doing. Like, I've been getting onto these, which we'll talk about in a bit if you want, like specific exercises. But it's been getting back into training, getting back into getting back into the rhythm of training, you know, the cycle, which you're just starting now, I guess. And then now I'm transitioning off into the second cycle, like the second phase.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Yeah.
So so where are you at with either of those 2 exercises? I mean, what kind of level are you at this point in time? So where are you starting that journey into next year?
Got my straddle, planche on the floor, no drama. But I don't, on the rings, it's a totally different ballgame. So I can't do a full planche at the minute, let alone on the rings. But I can get a tuck. I can get a good tuck on the rings. That's one of the things that I need to work on every session, is like whenever I'm at gymnastics, I need to do tuck planche on the rings, get that stability, get that timing. And then it's kind of the same for cross. So what I tend to do with the cross, on the rings at least, is do muscle ups to like support, like which is technically just being up on the rings, but you turn your hands out. So your hands and you're facing forward, your palms, and it opens up your shoulders and it kind of spreads your hands away, and the actual support for that is so much harder than just having them tight into you in a kind of dipping position, you know, where it's like pressed up against your body, and it's much easier to activate everything and keep it stable. You're almost like hunched over it, like kyphotic in that position, whereas when you turn your hands out, it like forces you out and you're like a little floaty angel. It's much more like it's much more difficult. It takes a lot more stability, and and it's like the first progression towards rings, because the cross, because you need that stability to then be able to turn your elbows under and hold that thing to be able to lower yourself into the cross.
Yeah, it sounds intense, man. I don't think I'll get anywhere near that at the moment.
It's when you look at it or you think about it, you think, it's nothing. You know, if you can do a muscle up, then you should be able to do a support, shouldn't you? Or if you could even do a dip, like really, before you can do a dip on the rings, you should be able to do a support, because you're just at the top of the dip. But the stability for it is it's intense. It's really, really difficult. And unless you
and the stamina for it as well, I guess, to sort of maintain that position, you know, for any extended period of time, to be comfortable, to kind of just get the strength development, because that's really what it's coming down to, isn't it? It's volume in terms of time, less repetitions.
Yeah. So what I'll do is, particularly at the end of sessions, because I find that my stability, like my ability to stay in that position is improved the further into this session I get. So I often do it at the end of sessions for finishers, and because of the amount of strength and like work I've done before, the muscle up itself, like the rep is hard, but getting in that stable position is easier. I find it. I don't really. It almost doesn't really make sense. Like you think it would be the other way around. You think it'd be more stable at the start, but I find the further in, the better I get with it.
Fair enough.
Which is, yeah, there's got to be a reason for it, but I'm not sure what it is.
So what's your timeline then in terms of actually getting these? I mean, when's the competition that you want to be ready for with regards to these actual positions?
Well, it was November the first time I did it and August this year. So I imagine it's going to be August again this year. I think it was a one-off that it was in November before, but I haven't done it before, so I don't really know. I think it's August, so that's, yeah, it's a good like 9 months, isn't it?
Yeah, so, all being well, assuming for no injuries or anything like that, as long as you're careful and progressive, there's no reason that you shouldn't be more than ready for that sort of timeline.
Yeah. But what you've got to remember is it's not just about being able to do the skill, it's about doing it in a routine.
Yes.
Which puts it in a bit... Once you have the skill, putting it in the routine shouldn't be too difficult because you can fit it in at the best point or your strongest point or where you're most comfortable doing it. So you can kind of almost do the routine around the skill rather than being like, I've got this routine, I'm going to stick across in here. You know what I mean? I could like front load it and then do easier exercises towards the end or tricks towards the end.
I was going to say, so given that they're going to be the probably more demanding things in your routine, given that they're fairly new and obviously they are very demanding positions.
Yeah.
You would put them in at the beginning, because I guess that's something that people don't always think about. If people are sort of casual lifters or trainers, gymnasts, when you actually look at people, particularly in the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, anything where it involves, high levels of gymnastic strength work, you see all these wonderful things at the beginning, and it's almost like people see the whole routine. They don't always see the individual components, and you don't. I've certainly never paid that much attention to what people are doing when, even though obviously, as we've talked about in previous episodes, understanding the nature of energy systems, and anyone with half a brain would realise that you're going to be more capable of doing the more complex, challenging, demanding work at the beginning of a routine as opposed to at the end, when you're going to be a lot more tired because of actually just by nature of going through the motions anyway. Yeah. So I guess I've never really thought of it as in depth as that, but I guess the challenge therefore is that you do these great, interesting things at the beginning of a routine, and then you've got to try and still keep the rest of the routine pretty interesting, so it doesn't look like you're just kind of half-arsing it and just throwing in a few bits to finish off.
Yeah. But the good thing about it is, like, a lot of the stuff is quite interesting anyway. So, and you can mix skills that are more strength-based and more, like, skill-based and like movement-based, so you can arrange it so you almost give yourself a little break at one point because you do like a shoulder stand, and although it takes a lot of tension and strength in itself, it's not as nearly as demanding as like an L-sit on the rings. So it's so you can kind of work your routine that kind of way, but ultimately it's about doing the big the demanding strength stuff at the start, and then usually just finishing off with something pretty cool, like your dismount's usually pretty interesting. Yeah,
cool. So off the top of your head now, just for shits and giggles, what would a routine look like? Let's talk us through a routine, just here and now, just kind of plan something out.
All right, cool. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll do my routine for the last competition, for the rings. So what I did was, from hang, I do like a pull-up into a front lever. So I pull right up to my hips, come out into a front lever. You hold that, then you do a muscle up out of the front lever, and then I don't know what it's called, but it's like a kind of roll held in the rings. So I'll do like into the muscle up, and then I'll do like a roll straight over, back up to a supported position. Then I went into a shoulder stand because I needed a breather after that. So, and then from the shoulder stand, I like straighten my arms as I come round, and then go straight into an L-sit. So it's almost, you just transition straight into it. There's no like back into support and then raise into L-sit. It's one movement. And then I went back down to hang in the L-sit position, so like a hang in L-sit. Lever up into an inverted hang, which is basically just hanging upside down, and then down into a back lever. Hold the back lever obviously as well, nice and tasty. down into a German hang, which is a full like hang in the wrong way, a skin the cat, some people call it. And then I come like out of that, flick through a couple of nice swings and a backflip dismount.
Nice. Like it. You're probably going to have to do a video for everyone just to kind of fully visualise what you just explained.
Yeah,
there,
yeah. I'll do it tonight. I'm at gymnastics tonight, so I'll do it tonight. I'll go through my routine.
You should stick it up on Instagram, let people see what you did.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good idea.
Did no one actually record you doing it in the competition?
Yeah, it was. The whole thing was recorded. There was obviously loads of stuff going on at the time, but each discipline was recorded for all the groups. So it is online, but you need to have a gymnastics membership, like British Gymnastics membership, because on their website, obviously they've got like kids and stuff, like. So it's a bit like I couldn't just put a link up for you guys to watch it. Sorry.
Ah, fair enough.
Yeah.
No, never mind. Can you not like request a copy of that then?
I probably could. I haven't actually checked it out. I'll have a little recce and see what comes up, because it would be quite interesting to see. Because I actually smashed it in the competition. That was one of my good ones, like really good ones. Because no one else in the competition did a front lever. Like one other person did a back lever, and that was the guy who I do training with. So like it was just us two then. You know what I mean? So. Everyone was like, "Oh mate, did you see that routine? Like, oh, that was fucking amazing." They were like, talking about me, which was pretty cool. Like, it was, yeah. Well, we spoke about that in one of your podcasts, didn't we? No?
Yeah, we did. I think it was probably actually the episode that gave us the idea to do this podcast.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly. So yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, I love anything with a routine and a flow to it. I mean, it's something that you lose out to some extent in gym-based training and Olympic lifting.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily Olympic lifting, sorry, because it does have its. I know it's not so much a routine, but it has its like flow in itself, doesn't it? The actual lift itself is it's a big movement. You know, it is a skill, like you were saying in the last show or the one before.
Oh yeah, if you're talking about clean and jerk,
clean and snatch,
or a snatch, which is obviously the most obvious two big Olympic lifts. You know, they're the ones that are going to be assessed in competition.
Yeah.
Everything else is just purely for powerlifting, such as deadlifts, squats, bench press, whatnot. So there is a fluidity to it, and there is a routine. It just happens very, very quickly because the lift is over in seconds. But yes, much like with a routine that you're doing, where you're breaking it down and having to work on each component part. Likewise, again, as we talked about previously, those lifts do require a lot of attention to the component parts of the movement. So, for example, with my training at the moment, the big emphasis has been on developing and progressing in the snatch. That's something that I'd never, as a movement, been particularly skilled at, had a very low level of competency with it, and decided that I wanted to kind of master it. And obviously not just be able to get the lift, but be able to get the lift to a suitable level. A ex-colleague of mine was posting up pictures of him doing 100 kilos, just as an amateur lifter. He does CrossFit, and that's kind of just something that he sort of does for fun. I don't think he actually competes, certainly not yet anyway. And it looked great. I was like, yeah, that looks like a really great lift, looks really strong. The benefits that you're going to gain off of doing, or having the capacity to do that lift, that's going to transcend just doing the snatch, that's going to broaden out into every other aspect of your lifting. And as I've found, it's massively enhanced my shoulder strength and mobility, hugely improved sort of squat depth, ability to drive up through my hips more through a deadlift, all these sort of power-based benefits that I've been getting out of it as well, just by doing or trying to focus in on one particular lift. It's had this huge, far-reaching benefit to my entire, the entirety of my training. So in that regard, there is a routine to it, because to start off learning those lifts, I have to break them down, or had to break them down into their individual parts. The deadlift, the high pull, the overhead squat. Really, all those things in themselves had to be pretty on point for me to be able to put them all together into one fluid movement. So yeah, there is a degree of routine. But when you look at very functional, very sound methodologies of training, whether it be gymnastics, whether it be martial arts, yoga is a great example as well. They all have this lovely fluidity where you can make beautiful transitions from one movement into another, some being more challenging than others, and obviously demonstrating a higher skill set in the discipline. And I think it's really something that people should aspire to master in at least one area. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to become a gymnastics expert, but doing yoga, if you're a gym rat, you're like someone that likes lifting, yoga is going to have a variety of different benefits to your training in terms of flexibility, mobility, just coordination in general, because that's stuff that you may not be getting if you're just really focusing on more power-based lifts, more compound stuff like deadlifts, squats, pull-ups, bench press, and then whatever other sort of machine-based or free weight-based work that you're doing in a standard gym setting. Doing yoga will just give you this heightened level of awareness around your body and coordination, and as the same as gymnastics does, as the same as martial arts does. There's a beauty in that I've discovered from obviously doing. I've not done routine work in gymnastics. Most of mine is just very isolated movements at the moment, but certainly in martial arts, yoga I've done a fair bit of as well, and continue to enjoy that. And I even like doing it in my warm-ups, trying to create mobility warm-ups where I start in one position on the floor and work my way up to sort of kneeling positions, then all the way up to a standing position. It's like a psychological progress for me during the warm-up to get ready to lift. So starting from a very relaxed position up into an upright, prepared and alert position rather, ready to actually act and lift.
That's what a lot of animal movement stuff's all about as well, isn't it? Like flowy kind of.
Yeah, if you look at animalflow.com, I think it's .com, a great example of where someone has taken a variety of different disciplines like yoga, gymnastics, and just general bodyweight work and put them together and dance as well. We've talked about dance before. That's another wonderful way of using routines to enhance movement and coordination, balance, stability, flexibility, stamina. Because you're putting together so many complex positions, you're going to get that endurance benefit as well. So yeah, I think that's one thing that we should advise people, regardless of what it is, to try and find something in their movement practice that's going to allow for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's the more I think you can integrate some kind of. I think routines are fun as well. So it's not just like integrating it's really good, and you should definitely do it. But I think that it's not just kind of boring. It's not. Yeah, it's much more interesting. It gives you a different dynamic to your training as well. It allows you to kind of try out different stuff and kind of just mess around a bit rather than have serious kind of sets and reps and it's kind of so like it's such a burden going down the gym with this whole plan of like I need to do 15 of these, 20 of these, 30 of them, 8 of these, 6 of them. If you can just go down like do a couple of animal movements and stuff and then like just mess around with like different movements you can do in a hang, like you can do like pull-ups, you can do leg raises, you can do like up rises, you can do loads of little things like, and you can mix in like flutter kicks or like bicycle kind of pedaling. Bicycle kicks like it's like pedaling a bike basically, as opposed to flutter kicks which are like kicking and swimming.
Do you know, I think you've mentioned flutter kicks in every single episode we've done.
I tell everyone about flutter kicks, they're bloody awesome.
It jumps up every time you say flutter kicks.
Yeah.
He's on the flutter kicks again.
Listen, have you tried them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know then.
Yeah, I know.
I do actually go on about flutter kicks loads. But it's a really good variation. You can stick an exercise, it brings all your core in, your hip flexors, it pulls all your, it helps isolate your upper body by kind of distracting your core. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you're doing like pull-ups like it's better than just doing L-sit pull-ups because you're almost removing all of your core from the exercise, certainly the lower part of your trunk anyway, and forcing your upper body just to do that. Plus it's more challenging for your brain, and it usually makes you pull funnier faces too.
What it's all about.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think we should have training faces.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I don't watch it religiously, but my girlfriend made us sit through an episode of Strictly Come Dancing last night, which is, I've got to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the whole celebrity culture, but it is impressive to see people, there was Ed Balls, former politician, essentially being put through his... Sorry?
Just go on, like, proper give it a go.
Yeah, go on and give it a go. And, maybe not the most likeable man, but actually he came across really well last night, and you could see the progress from... I'd seen him in a prior episode, months back, and then saw him again last night, and while he still looked rigid and didn't really have that much natural movement through his hips, he'd obviously progressed quite a lot, and that's a big jump for him. And there's a lot of entertainment to it, just watching people's progress, because again, as we've mentioned before, dance is a really strong discipline. It's a really powerful thing. You look at the physical condition of any of those professional dancers on the show, it's massively inspiring, to see what they're capable of doing, and obviously especially working with a partner who starts off, at a very low level of ability in dance, or if none at all. They're having to work tirelessly just to kind of compensate for their inability as well. And the point you made about faces is just that's one of the funniest things about watching that show.
Yeah.
Is watching people doing their dancer face, because you've got the professionals who have it down pat. They've got their really sort of bright, broad smile, eyes wide open. And they had a guy last night, one of the contestants, is it Judge Rinder? Have you seen this guy?
No.
He's basically like the UK version of Judge Judy. He's like has a daytime courtroom TV show where people come in. It's like a small claims court type thing. It's pretty cringe. It's not really something I would recommend to people to watch, but he actually seems like quite a character. He has a certain campness about him, and he's kind of got a lot of enthusiasm and a big smile, and he was doing it last night, and my God, he just looked like he was really straining to maintain this grin, this kind of performance face. Almost looked like he was a bit mental, He looked like a bit psychotic, that he was trying to smile so much. Like, just relax a little bit, just take a breath, ease up. But when you see that show, when you watch people, on day one, they're like so intense and focused. And as those that get better at it, they do sort of progress and look a little bit less crazy. But he was still going full crazy last night, which was quite entertaining.
Going full crazy.
But yeah. Do you know, I never thought I'd be doing a podcast where I'd be able to freely talk about Strictly Come Dancing. Even though I'm not a huge fan, it's still something that you just think, well, it's part of the kind of cultural zeitgeist now, isn't it? It's there, it's something that people know. It's something I guess you can reference to if you're talking about progression, certainly, and people coming from a very low to zero skill level in a discipline, and then over a period of weeks paying attention to it. It's a good analogy for, I think, any other training discipline whatsoever. Yeah,
it's something that anyone could just watch or is already aware of, and they can understand the progression concept. I can't believe we actually haven't come up with it beforehand.
No, I know. Maybe we should play on this a little bit more. We need to be a little bit more in tune with the people, man. Get out of our little bubble.
In tune with the people, man. That's like the total opposite of the kind of diction you used. The actual words,
The actual words,
to get more into the pop culture and that, dude.
Well, it's funny because I'm now realising I went kind of very anti-pop culture, and I still am to some extent. I think, just because something's popular doesn't mean it's good. I think that's unfortunately the world that we live in nowadays, where, this idea of conforming to, the stereotypes, or people are so drawn to just fitting in, and we've probably been through it as teenagers. I'm sure I, at some point in my life, was desperate to fit in, although I kind of feel like I've always been a little bit of an outsider in a lot of respects. But there is this, obviously, there's even more so now, this idea that you've got to look and act and behave a certain way and be into certain types of music, and everything else is, while we live in an information age where everything is accessible, everything outside of the mainstream is still quite underground. You still have to make quite a concerted effort to go and find, slightly independent music and film and things like that. We don't have a very broad range. What is mainstream and popular is still very mainstream and popular. But I realise now, if you actually look at what happened recently with the US presidential election, one of the biggest issues with that is that we live in this algorithmic world where everyone's only seeing what Facebook or YouTube or whatever sort of algorithmic bots want you to see, because you're in this echo chamber where you only see things that they know you're going to like. So you're kind of preaching to the converted whenever you put stuff out there that maybe seems a little bit controversial, or you're kind of railing against the mainstream in any sense, or just talking, out against something, because the chances are the people that need to hear it to potentially open their mind to be converted to a new idea or a new way of thinking aren't there.
Yeah.
You're speaking to the people who already believe the same things as you do. That's the world we live in. And the same thing, as I say, happened with the recent US election, where all these people were railing against Trump and trying to speak out against him.
And all just shouting at each other.
Yeah, exactly. It just bounced back. So I think it's really important, and this can be in the fitness world, in training, it can be in nutrition as well. Just because you're strict paleo, don't feel that you can't go and, indulge yourself in vegan communities, because you might find some really great tasty things. You don't have to have meat with absolutely every meal. You may want to broaden your diet out. It's really healthy, I think, to look at other disciplines, look outside of your little echo chamber, your little comfort bubble, and try and look at different things. So for me, something like watching an episode of Strictly Come Dancing and trying to find some value and lessons and understanding in that I can relate back to my life and the way I want to frame things. Yeah, exactly, because, you've got to meet people where they are. There are a lot of people out there that would like to come into our world, where the things we talk about and the things that we're into, but they may be outside of that. You may need to kind of use something else as a little fishhook to kind of draw them in a little bit. And if you could see the actions I'm doing while I'm saying this as well, it's quite funny. I'm kind of doing a little reeling action like a fish rod. So, slight tangent there, but I think it's important.
No,
you know,
it
it's
fits
really
perfectly into training, mate. If it says how many times I've been down a gym, done my little weird stuff, and everyone looks at me like I'm a total freak. And then you kind of catch them trying it out later on. Yeah. And they got no chance. And they're like, what?
But they might come and ask you.
Yeah. Usually they usually feel a bit embarrassed and then like go back to the treadmill or something.
Yeah, totally. But it's great, you know, when people see you doing things in a more commercial gym environment, you know, people see me doing like handstand press ups and things like that, and maybe come and go, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, it's really not. Yeah. If you're in like a gymnastics club, I'd be the kind of loser like starting out. But you know, to them that's like a gateway, and they're like, oh wow, I could never do that. And I'm like, well, trust me, like, you know, here's a few ideas as to how you could progress to trying that, if that's something you think you'd be inspired to try, rather than just going around in circles doing the same stuff and over again. And look, I'd rather people move than not move, as I always say. You know, some movement is better than none at all. Yeah. So sticking to your routines, getting up every day, you know, having a schedule, having a process, having a practice that you're comfortable with is more important than anything. You know, consistency is key. However, people will get bored. Like you said, one of the beautiful things in routines and in choreography is that you're making transitions from one thing to another, rather than always just pounding reps on one particular move in one particular position through one particular plane of motion. Yeah. It's great to kind of learn that actually you can move from one thing to the other, then to the other. It doesn't have to be repetitions on one movement in one position over and over again to get a benefit. In fact, I can get exhausted working through just one sequence in martial arts, which, you know, there are no two moves identical.
Yeah, I think routines are awesome. Another one with crazy routines is pole dancing and stuff.
We're back on the pole dancing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it just made me think of my mate Ben again. And I was like, I remember talking about Ben the other day. I'll just talk about him again for a little bit.
But again, it's great. I mean, if you can play this game all day, like, you know, we've started with gymnastics talking about routines, but then it opens up a conversation about yoga and dance and martial arts, and now pole dancing, and you realise how many different ways there are to develop this into your movement practice, to find something that is quite routine based, as in not routine as in repetitive, but routine as in putting something together in terms of a series of movements. Yeah, I think it's great. It just shows that there is so much diversity out there in terms of training. There's so many different options that people can follow. It doesn't just have to be one. And who knows, someone might start pole dancing and decide, actually, you know, this is quite like gymnastics, and, you know, I want to make that transition through to calisthenics and gymnastics work.
I think a lot of like what we talk about is the strength element of a lot of these disciplines. So like obviously particularly pertain to gymnastics, like only because I do it, but if I was doing like a pole or I was doing something else, then I'd probably be talking about it in that context, but I'd still be doing this method of training because it will help develop every aspect of the other discipline. Because rather than doing very, very simple movements for reps, you are doing more complicated, more compound movements that are a lot more challenging in much more than just strength and single plane kind of movements. You know, you've got progressions, you've got developments, you've got transitions between leg and arm movements and total body movements and all kinds of movements galore.
Glorious movements galore. Yeah, well, of course, and you know, it's going to be hard to maintain too many high skill, high demand disciplines at any one time. You know, you're going to find it very hard to excel at gymnastics and pole dancing at the same time, because of the nature of both things being, you know, exceptionally demanding in terms of the physicality of it, and to be able to perfect certain positions and movements and whatnot. But if you took 2 weeks out of your gymnastics practice and just decided to do like an intensive pole dancing series where, you know, you went and trained with your mate Ben, you know, for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose what you've gained in gymnastics. In fact, you may make a really interesting transference of some capability back across that from just doing this intense.
Definitely would.
You know, full dive into something else.
Yeah, you definitely would, because it is relevant. It's not just about the discipline. It's about your physical ability. So any
Yeah.
improvement on any scale will transfer as an improvement in other aspects that you're already competent at.
Absolutely. And even things that are quite far apart, like, take yoga and powerlifting, there's still going to be a carryover. If you took 2 weeks out of powerlifting, given the fact that you're still training, you're still moving, you're still doing some sort of structured movement throughout the course of the week. Take a couple of weeks off and try and go all in on yoga, for example. If you want like a full deep dive, you want to go and hit a retreat, out in Ibiza or somewhere, to kind of get in touch with yourself and, go all zen and, connect with nature and whatever it may be, whatever your reasons for doing a retreat are. And that's not me mocking that. That probably sounded like I am mocking it. I think retreats are great. So, just to be clear, if there was any
We're hippies too, guys.
sarcasm, if there's any latent sarcasm in my voice, that wasn't intended. I was just kind of, I don't know.
Enjoying the thought.
I was really enjoying the thought.
Marinating in it.
Yeah, I really was. Yeah, I was kind of percolating on it. It was really lovely. But you're going to come back and all of a sudden, okay, maybe a slight diminishing in some strength because you've not been lifting heavy, but equally there could be a huge recovery benefit where you've given your body a chance to adapt and recover and, fully regenerate, optimally, rather than just a kind of couple of days off you'd normally take maybe at the weekend or something. Plus, you've then gained all this extra mobility, all this extra, again, if you're away on holiday or on a retreat, it could be even better because your whole body will probably kind of detox and relax and de-stress a lot because you're away from the rigors of everyday life as well. But even those two disciplines being quite far apart can be hugely complementary if you just take out time out to do one and then go back to the other.
Yeah.
Obviously, the better alignment would be to maybe find a way of integrating them both into the same week. In that example, maybe not the pole dancing and the gymnastics, but
why not?
Lifting. Well, yeah, possibly. It depends on who you are, your age, your time constraints, like we've talked about before in a previous episode on mindset. It's all about understanding what's going to really drive you, what's going to feel like you're thriving, what's going to inspire you, and also to make sure that you're allowing for the time it takes to excel or to certainly master the disciplines that you're talking about. Because if you can't be affording, a couple of hours a day, in some respects, it's going to be quite difficult to master two skill sets at the same time.
Yeah, but there's no reason that if given like you had 2 spare evenings, you could do a class of each a week, and that would probably spread it out quite evenly enough for it to integrate with your training quite well. Maybe you did like a pole class on Tuesday and a gymnastics one on a Thursday, just as the going example. There's no reason that you couldn't do that either, No,
not at all. Not at all.
Just
as long as you're as long as you're managing your expectations of how far you're going to progress.
Oh yeah.
With either doing that, would you be in that example? You'd always say you're better off doing, if you've only got 2 free evenings a week to do anything, you'd pick the same discipline probably, just to allow for some degree of consistency. I would say if someone says to me, I want to do yoga and strength lifting, I'd say, and powerlifting or strength-based gym work, I'd say, well, look, I'm going to actually ask you to prioritise the strength work. We're going to look at integrating mobility and some functional movement around that, and then let's try and fit a yoga class in at the weekend, for example. But yeah, there's a multitude of different ways of scheduling this stuff in, but the point, as you made it, is completely valid. Like, there's no reason you can't do 2 things at once. It's just about understanding what sort of progress you're going to attain in either one, and also trying to just be realistic with your own sort of, in terms of your own inspiration, to kind of maintain that over a prolonged period of time if you're not getting those requisite gains that you maybe expect to be getting in a short space of time.
Yeah. Well, going back to the actually within the sessions, what kind of stuff we're getting on with, what kind of stuff we've been up to or haven't been up to.
Was that a dig?
No. They're just both sides of the coin, wasn't it?
that was just like a low blow. It's like,
sorry, mate. I'm at the vantage point at the minute, because you can't reach me.
Yeah, it's fine. Like,
so, what were you doing today when you were training?
So today was just some very basic lifting, just to kind of get myself back into the flow. So today was deadlifting, overhead barbell work, just to fire the shoulders up. I've been finding a little bit of a drop off in strength on my left hand side, so I needed to sort of bring that back up to speed. So overhead pressing, some very basic anterior pressing work, dumbbell work, press ups, walking lunges, which is really funny. Walking lunges are an interesting exercise because more often than not, I don't derive a great deal of pleasure from them. I don't think many people do. But every now and then I just wake up, and for some reason it's like the universe is telling me, you're going to do some walking lunges today. It was like I had a craving today to do walking lunges, even though I'd actually planned to do something slightly different. I was going to do just a step reverse lunge. For some reason, my brain, my body, God, consciousness, whatever, the universe was telling me I had to do some walking lunges. It just felt really good to do them.
I like doing them. If I get down the gym sometimes, I'm like, if I mess around with the weights, I like doing walking lunges. Like they're quite easy, and there's, like you say, they're not necessarily particularly fun, but there's some kind of entertainment value in there somewhere.
Well, I think they're interesting because you're moving quite a lot. It's not just up and down, or back and forth, back and forth. It's just because you cover ground. It's relatable back to
do a couple
doing
laps.
More. Yeah, possibly. It's relatable back to doing more real world activity. I can always picture myself, visualization, I think, is a huge part of training. Trying to, especially when you're forcing out the last few reps of a movement, trying to visualize yourself doing something in the real world that, that movement, that exercise would be relative for. So I know it sounds crazy, but if you're doing a bench press and you're, really busting through that last rep, and you sort of imagine you're lifting a car off yourself, otherwise it's going to crush you. Just some sort of positive visualization to help you get through that last little push.
Positive at all.
Well, of course it is, because you're just, you can have fun with it. You could think of it as like a survival thing.
Yeah, I know what
or you could think of it as like
you're about to be crushed by a car, and I'm thinking,
or just like, this is my Incredible Hulk moment. This is me just like, oh, Hulk smash, and just drive the bar up. Whatever it takes to really. Sometimes I swear at the bar. I get quite into it.
Sometimes I caress it gently and talk a little bit sensually to it.
Yeah, you got to like wine and dine it before you go for the hard stuff. Yeah, but I used to have a client. He had a really positive visualization for pull-ups, and he would imagine, and this is God's honest truth. This is how powerful visualization can be if you give people permission to have fun with it and play with it and use it in terms of applying it somehow in the context of their life. He used to imagine that he had 2 daughters, and he'd imagine that he was hanging off the edge of a cliff and they were hanging on to him, and he had to, the only way he could save them is if he kept pulling himself up, and he'd bust through those last couple of reps like so easily when he got into that state where he was able to visualize that. It was a really positive anchoring that he had that allowed him to push through. And trust me, this is coming into fitness now in a much bigger way. We talked about mindset in a broader sense, and we'll get into visualizations and whatnot a bit further down the line, but there's a great guy I've gotten to know through doing an interview on another podcast I do, Fitness Coach Mastery, a guy called Lazo Freeman, who runs a company called Body Transformation Academy, and a huge part of what he's teaching other personal trainers is something he's learned as a skill himself as a coach, is visualization, is getting people to push through personal bests just by remembering either a time in their life where they felt highly empowered, exceptionally strong, or just finding a visualization that has a deeper emotional connection than just finishing the set.
Yeah, that's interesting, because whenever I've thought of visualization in training, or whenever I've used it, it's more about visualizing the movement and like being able to almost kind of third person or first person myself through it. But I kind of do both. So I'll try and watch it from like the outside at first, and I like visualize like as if I was a spectator, and I'd watch myself do it. And then I'd switch to like first person mode, where I'd just see it from my viewpoint, and I'd see myself do it. Do you know what I mean? And I'd use those two like looping back and forth through the skill as I was doing it, or to prepare myself for the actual movement. I've never thought of it as like in like a real world kind of thing. I think the only thing I could really use is like ninja evades for like flicks and stuff.
But whatever inspires you, that's the great thing. It's subjective. It's something that makes you feel motivated, that drives you through, that gives you, as I say, a really powerful emotional anchor. And that's subjective. That's completely relevant to you. You can't visualize yourself with your daughters hanging off your back as you're doing some sort of muscle up, because you don't have daughters. It's got to be something that has a greater emotional value. And like we talked about in the mindset episode, that is so important, because understanding your kind of reason for doing something, if you've got that, then you can draw on that in any way, shape or form you like. Yeah. And like this visualization thing is key to that. And visualization's been a huge part of professional sports for a long time, in terms of athletes in different disciplines and probably gymnastics as well, very much so. Really running that routine through your head, not just the physical preparation in terms of running those particular plays, whether it's like basketball, American football, or running set pieces in football, but positively visualizing yourself going up there, stepping up there, doing the whole routine, it going successfully. Just it's a part of the preparation in itself.
Yeah.
But then there's nothing to say that during the actual exertion, the actual movement, the actual routine, the play, the match, whatever it may be, that you can't have those moments where you kind of bring it back to yourself. You don't get lost in the enormity of the whole thing. You kind of just really focus in on why it's important to you to do it and how you can, what way you can get the most out of what you're actually doing, whether it's, as I say, that real life context, or whether it's just really focusing in and almost in a kind of like meditative state, drilling down and getting very internally connected to what you're actually doing, rather than, just going through the motions.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm actually going to try some. I've already had some funny little ideas for what I can think and like ways I can kind of encourage myself to do the opposite movement. Because that's how I see it working. Like, you know what I mean? Like you imagine like you're holding onto some rope and two rhinos are running in either direction. You got to like pull it in. Do you know what I mean? So I've got little ideas like that. I'm going to try out tonight as well. Oh yeah, man, I've ended up with homework from doing this. Like, what is this about? There's like 3 things I got to do at gymnastics tonight. For everyone else, like, not even for me.
But like with everything, just have fun with it. Enjoy it. It's got to be. We get far too serious with everything in training, and I think a large part of what we've hopefully conveyed through previous episodes, and will continue to do that. The play element, the emotional, the fun, the human aspect of training. Let's not think of, it goes right to the ethos of this show. It's more than lifting. It's life. It's absolutely everything. Don't compartmentalize training down to being one little box, one little part of who you are. It should movement and training and fitness and using this vehicle that you've been given to kind of transport you around. This is your home. This is this kind of little meat box that you've been placed within. Let's look after it. Let's use it. Let's kind of connect with it whichever way we can. So I think it's cool. It's just enjoy it in every way, shape or form, and nothing is off limits. Like, have as much crazy fun with it, and I don't know, let's share some of. I'll do the same. I'll find some like really weird visualizations and think and try and find what works really, really well for me, because I've only ever really played with it quite loosely in the past. I've used it more with clients than I have with myself. So I'll have a little think too and see what kind of crazy ideas we can come up with, because it may give some of the listeners a bit of inspiration.
Yeah, draw a little picture. A little picture of you doing an exercise, and then like what you're actually imagining you're doing as your visualization.
Yeah, that could
That'd
work.
be right, wouldn't it? We've got a week to do it.
Okay.
Let's actually do
Sounds
it.
good. Yeah, and then you have to post it on Instagram.
Yeah. We'll put it on the show notes page as well. So it'd be episode 7, morethanlifting.com/episode 7.
Cool. Nice one. Yeah, I'll have to. Like anything, I'll be honest, I've been a bit slack with Instagram and sort of social media in general recently. I've been going through a transition with my coaching business. But I'll have to start. Anything I put up on my personal profile, I'll have to kind of link it to you somehow, copy you to it, anything that I think is relevant, so that people can kind of come to yours as More Than Lifting, because it's obviously the brand and the name of the show and everything, and then they can kind of check that out a little bit more easily perhaps. Or maybe you can just repost my stuff, which kind of be appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure we could work something out for a small fee, Chris.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if it's relevant. Yeah. Handstand fails.
Yeah. I'll repost your handstand fails if you pay me.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
That works for the listeners as well. If you've got some handstand fails you want to send me and with some money, then I'll put it on Instagram. I'm joking, you don't really have to give me money for fails, because they're just awesome.
There might be a business model in there somewhere, who knows?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, I think that's quite a lot we've covered today, actually.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily expecting to get into as much of that sort of stuff as we did, but it was quite a pleasant couple of little tangents to go off on, so yeah, it's all good.
I think that's...
Just goes to show how crazy these episodes are going to be now.
Yeah. Well, we haven't gone too much into like ultra specifics yet, so like next week we can catch up on what's kind of been going on, like how we've been getting on with it, what's changed, what other stuff we've been doing, the latest developments in global news. We can go into stock exchange. We can do, we can cover everything. We can do a little recipe section where we where we do our best Gary Rhodes or impression. Or we could do Jamie Oliver if you want.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing dodgy Cockney.
Well, it's Essex, mate, ain't Cockney.
Yeah, well,
It's worse, much worse.
all right.
But yeah.
Dodgy Essex then.
Yeah.
No, fair play to Jamie. No disrespect. He's
We're only joking. Obviously,
guy.
he's done some crazy things for food, and obviously his personal brand's on point. He is a really entertaining guy. I'm sure he's awesome
indeed.
as well. Like, if I met him, I think he's a right legend.
Oh yeah, definitely. Look,
Send us an
anyone
email, Jamie, and tweet us at more than
get in touch, Jamie. I bet he listens. I bet he does.
I bet he does.
He
7
looks like
episodes in, and he's our only listener.
I do wonder actually. I'd be interesting. Wonder what sort if he does any real focus training. Whether he's kind of because he obviously I guess it's kind of one of the things that hits chefs quite a lot, isn't it? At one point I know he was looking a little bit portly, shall we say? Eating too much of his own good food, I guess, and maybe not focusing
Too much olive
on his
oil, Jamie.
Far too much oil, yeah. So yeah, it'd be interesting actually to find out what he did. I might look into that.
Yeah. You give him a private message.
Yeah, I'm sure he responds to all of those.
Yeah, I bet he does. Also, if you listeners have any questions, any comments, anything you want to get hold of us, like email me at Rhys at More Than Lifting, or Rhys Morgan at More Than Lifting, or get hold of Coach Thatcher somehow, and or on Twitter or whatever. Like, just get hold of us. It's not that difficult. I mean, we've got channels all over the bloody place, haven't we? Because that's how the world works. So reach out to us, ask us a question. We'll cover that as well, I try and do a bit on Quora as well. So if you've got questions or you're on Quora, like, feel free to ask me stuff. I talk to people on there all the time. So, let's get at it,
Cool. Yeah.
And then we'll work out a way you can pay me money for it.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's true. I mean, I've said it before, so again, any podcast is only as good as its listeners. So, whatever interaction, feedback we get from you guys out there listening, it's hugely valuable to us to make sure we continue to grow the show in a way that people are going to enjoy. We're still going to do our own thing as and when we like, but if there's information, yeah, exactly. We probably will sort of take most of it with a pinch of salt. If people kind of want us to talk about stuff that we find a bit boring and
we'll probably tell
irrelevant.
them about it.
Although saying that, what we said earlier in the episode about looking outside of your echo chamber, looking outside your little bubble. So maybe we do need to have some things put to us that we can find some greater, deeper meaning relevant to what we talk about in. Who knows?
Yeah, if you want to give us free classes, free dance classes, free pole dances, Ben. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Cooking classes, Jamie.
Yeah, cooking classes. If you're Jamie Oliver and you message us, we'll let you teach us how to cook better.
Yeah, or free meals, and we'll come down and endorse your restaurant.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we can work something out.
Oh, one of those other tangents again. People, do you reckon people listen to this and go, "Is this a training podcast? Is it really about fitness?"
I think the first couple kind of were. Like, now it's all downhill from here.
I wonder if we're on this like really insane trajectory that like about 20 episodes in, we're just going to be, I don't know, talking about knitting or something.
Welcome to More Than Lifting, the ultimate knitting podcast.
Yeah, it's called More Than Lifting because we don't really lift anymore, we just knit.
Yeah, we're hypermobile.
Hypermobile knitters.
Yeah, our fingers bend all the way back to our elbows.
Yeah, me. Anyway, should we wrap up?
Yeah. We'll let you do it this time because I think I won rock, paper, scissors last time, didn't I?
Did you? Oh, should we play again? Or should
All right,
we just,
then, yeah, go on.
again?
After 3, 4, ready? 3, 2, 1, stone.
Nuclear bomb.
Ah, man. Okay, well, yeah, I guess you win that one, don't you?
Yeah, I kind of had to rig it, sorry.
It was a wild card.
It was a big wild card. Like, you can use a joker every now and then.
Yeah.
So, anyway, guys, if you like what you've heard today, please do head on over to iTunes to leave a rating and review to help support the show and help other people to find it as well. If you're not already, do subscribe. You should be. Hopefully you are. But if you're not, please do, and tell all your friends to do the same. And, yeah, get in touch, as Rhys said, morethanlifting.com. Get in touch via social media. You can find us both as Coach Thatch or More Than Lifting on a variety of different platforms. So give us your questions, your comments, your feedback, your poor huddled yearning masses yearning to breathe. No, hang on. What is it? Your poor huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's the one. You can cut that.
Where's
out.
that from?
So do get in touch.
That in. That's going in the intro.
So whichever means you want to get in touch, as we say, via email, via social, via carrier pigeon, whatever seems the most appropriate to you. Run down south if you're anywhere else in the country. Come and find us. I mean, knock on a few doors. You'll probably locate us wherever we are.
Eventually, yeah.
So, yeah. So whichever way you like to get in touch and shout at the world, then
just don't
send some
follow
of
us
it our
home from
way.
the pub.
And what's that?
Don't follow us home from the pub, or wait like in the bushes outside our house or something.
Yeah. Don't do
Daylight
that,
hours are usually best.
Yeah, because we've got other groupies and, they'll just be in the way and it gets messy and, Rhys's mum doesn't like him having people outside the house after dark, so...
Oh, yes.
Oh, anyway. Right, cool. I'm done. You done?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I think that covers it all. Next week we're going to talk about more training nonsense. And until then, tell all your mates about us. Add us on Snapchat, and if you're a girl, add us on Snapchat, and if you're a dude, just stick to Instagram. It's much safer. You know what? A guy added me.
What are you sending out on Snapchat?
Usually nudies. What do you use Snapchat for?
I don't. I've been using Snapchat for a while actually. I'm kind of more of a voyeur on Snapchat at the moment.
Oh right, you just watch the nudies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I hope people know we're joking now.
Well, yeah, to be fair, anyone that doesn't know we were joking probably left a while ago.
Yeah. So this dude, anyway, on Snap, I got added by this guy on Snapchat the other day. It's quite a good story, and he sends me a message. And I was working, so I didn't check it, and I looked at it about half hour later, and it was just a picture of him sitting on the sofa, kind of looking at the camera a bit seductively, and it said, "Alone and a bit tipsy." I was like, what? I didn't know this guy. Like, he just goes around. It reminded me of chat roulette. You know what I mean? Do you remember chat roulette?
Oh, right, yeah.
So I was like, does he just like type in names on Snapchat, like hunt people down, and then just send them like kind of sexting requests?
It's like just throw as many out. It's just law of averages, isn't it?
Yeah.
You throw it to enough people, eventually someone's going to respond. Yeah, it's complete numbers.
So after 3.5 hours of sending back and forth, no, I'm joking.
I get weird stuff. Like, I don't know if some people don't fully understand what, how it works to do your story or to send it to everyone as a personal message. Because I get some stuff and I'm like, why am I being sent this? It's like some random person in Holland on a night out, and I'm just like, why? I don't even know who you are. Like, you followed me a while ago, and maybe I, out of courtesy, followed you back. But yeah, some really inane stuff that you wonder sometimes. You're like, I hope I never got my phone confiscated or something, because some of these people are sending stuff. You're like, I've never asked for this. And I'm not going to tell you some of. I'm not going to tell you some of the stuff I've received. But
please.
No. It's just, you could see how these things could go horribly wrong, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You get sent something that's a little bit risque.
And then you lose your phone and suddenly it's your photo. Like.
Yeah, you accidentally save it to your memories rather than actually, delete it. And, it's the kind of whole... I fell on the carrot, doctor. That's why it's up there, type thing, isn't it?
And the jam jar.
And the jam jar, and the action man, and yeah. Anyway,
yeah, he was taped to the action man. Oh my god, what we're doing?
I accidentally taped the cap. Oh dear.
All right, guys.
God.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, end the discussion today. So yeah, rate, review, subscribe, get in touch, reach out, and please come back for another one, because I know these things get a bit weird sometimes. But
it's so funny, man.
We hope you get something from it.
All right, have a good one, mate. I'll catch you very soon.
Yeah, you too, mate. Take it easy.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.